The dash is a measure of liquidity which excludes dash, generally the least liquid asset. Well reasoned. Acid test ratio, inventory is the correct choice. Which of the following would not be included as a liability in a corporate balance sheet? Smart pick. Accumulated depreciation is the correct choice. All of the following items are typical of a multiple-step income statement, except for. Correct. Total costs and expenses is the right answer. Current assets include only those assets which are expected to be realized within dash. On track. 1 year is the correct answer. The financial statement that presents a shareholder's residual claim on assets is the. Excellent. Balance sheet is a brilliant choice. Measures to what degree the assets of the firm have been financed with borrowed funds. You're right. Debt to assets ratio is the correct answer. All of the following are included in the statement of financial position, except for. Nice selection. Vehicle expenses is the correct and valid answer. Comparisons of financial statements highlights the trend of the dash of the business. Solid response. All of the above is a valid choice. If your current ratio is above this number, you are considered to have good liquidity. Bravo 1 is the answer. How many clauses exist in the company's order 2016? Nice work. You chose 16 and it is correct. A comparison between two numbers showing how many times one number exceeds the other. Right again. Ratio is a valid answer. Which supplier of funds bears the greatest risk and should earn the greatest return? Valid point. Common shareholders is true. Financial ratios that show how and to what degree a company has financed its assets. You chose leverage ratios, and it is correct. Comparison of values of one period with those of another period for the same firm is. Good thinking. Intra-firm comparison is the right answer. Which category of ratios helps answer the question, can we make required payments? Ooh. Excellent choice. Liquidity ratios is the right answer. Profit on sale of investments is shown in which section of the cash flow statement? Smart move. Investing activities is an accurate answer. The number of times during an operating period that the average inventory was sold. Great job. Inventory turnover is the accurate answer. Which ratio tells us if a business might struggle to pay off its short-term debts? Good job. Your answer current ratio works well here. What does a high debt-to-equity ratio indicate about a company's financial health? Strong choice. Financial instability is the right answer. Which of the following legal forms of organization is most expensive to organize? Correct response. Corporations is the most accurate answer. Which of the following financial statements should have the highest credibility? Exactly. Audited financial reports make sense, and it is right choice. Which of the following is not included in computing it? You got it. Your choice dividends is right. Indicates a firm's ability to quickly liquidate assets to pay off current debts. Right choice, acid test quick ratio is the best answer. While preparing fund flow statement, increase in capital will be considered as perfect. Long-term source is the correct choice. Examples may include salaries, utilities, rent, insurance, and office supplies. Sharp thinking. Expenses is the right choice. A financial report that shows a company's cash coming in and out is called dash. Nicely done. Cash flow statement is a solid answer. Cash margin for issuance of LC for purchase of machine is to be classified as clear logic. Your choice, non-current assets, is sound and 100% true. The percent of property, plant and equipment to total assets is an example of well picked. Vertical analysis is the correct answer. Which of the following stakeholder care most about a company's current ratio? Well done. Its suppliers is the right choice. If the operating cycle cannot be identified, it is assumed to be a period of great thinking. 12 months is the right choice. What do we deduct from the current asset to calculate the quick asset ratio? Clear logic. Your choice inventory is sound and 100% true. Analysis of financial statements comprises analysis and interpretation of. Excellent choice. All of the above is the right answer. Which of the following is not one of the three basic financial statements? Smart pick. Uses of revenue accounts is the correct choice. What ratio shows how well a business can turn revenue into gross profit? On track. Gross profit margin is the correct answer. Debentures redeemable after 10 years from the date of issue are shown as perfect. Long-term borrowings is the correct choice. From financial statement analysis, the creditors are interested to know. Correct response. Liquidity is the most accurate answer. Cash flow statement consists the cash flows from the dash activities. Sharp thinking. All of above is the right choice. A company's financial position would be best evaluated using the dash. Well done. Balance sheet is the right choice. Slow-moving and non-moving obsolete stocks should be classified as good thinking. Non-current assets is the right answer. Which of these are not the methods of financial statement analysis? Great job. Capitalization method is the accurate answer. Following item will not appear under owner's fund in balance sheet. You got it. Your choice debentures is right. Choose the appropriate ratio analysis. Accounts receivable turnover. Excellent. Liquidity ratios is a brilliant choice. Surplus, i.e. balance in statement of profit and loss, is shown as exactly. Reserves and surplus make sense, and it is right choice. From the given items which is not shown under current liabilities. Solid response. Inventories is a valid choice, where the trade payables will be classified in the balance sheet. Strong choice. Current liabilities is the right answer. You can get this information by reading financial reports. Except.
You chose when is debt due, and it is correct.
Advance given for procurement of machine should be classified as. You're right. Non-current assets is the correct answer. The dash is useful in evaluating credit and collection policies. Good job. Your answer, average collection period, works well here. Which of the following is not a measure of short-term liquidity? Great thinking. Debt ratio is the right choice. Below are methods of analyzing financial statements, except dash. Smart move. Environmental impact analysis is an accurate answer. Which of the following is not shown as non-current liabilities? Valid point. Trade payables is true. Below are all the components of financial statements except. Bravo. Statement of debt is the answer. Whether fund flow statement is part of financial statements. Correct. Yes is the right answer. Compares the total debt of the firm with the owner's equity.
Right again. Debt to equity ratio is a valid answer.
Choose the appropriate ratio analysis.
Times interest earned.
Well reasoned. Solvency ratios is the correct choice. Choose the appropriate ratio analysis. Debt to assets ratio. Well picked. Solvency ratios is the correct answer. All of the following are asset utilization ratios except. Nice selection. Return on assets is the correct and valid answer. Operating profit before interest and tax equal to gross profit. Nice work. You chose operating expenses, and it is correct. The raw materials holding level is compared in terms of. Nicely done. Month's consumption is a solid answer. The following are the components in the financial report. Right choice. Capital change report is the best answer. Below are the users of financial statements, except dash. Great thinking. Salesman is the right choice. What is another name for the debtor's turnover ratio? Perfect. Accounts receivables turnover ratio is the correct choice. Choose the appropriate ratio analysis. Asset turnover. Excellent. Profitability ratios is a brilliant choice. Comparative analysis is also known as dash analysis. Right again. Horizontal is a valid answer. Which of the following is not a short-term borrowing? You chose trade receivables, and it is correct. Choose the appropriate ratio analysis, current ratio. Nicely done. Liquidity ratios is a solid answer. Total fund utilized equal to fixed assets plus investment plus. Great job. Working capital is the accurate answer. Which of the following is not a non-current asset? Nice work. You chose share capital, and it is correct. The main source of revenue for a trading business. Correct response. Sales is the most accurate answer. Calls in advance and interest thereon is shown as. Solid response. Other current liabilities is a valid choice. The following are examples of real assets except. Excellent choice. Common stock is the right answer. Money received against share warrants is shown as. Smart move. Shareholders' funds is an accurate answer.
Share application money is shown as.
You got it. Your choice other current liabilities is right.
Which one of the following is a long-term asset?
You're right. Land is the correct answer. Interest coverage ratio is to be calculated as. Correct. EBITDA interest is the right answer. Premium on redemption of debentures is shown as. Good job. Your answer other long-term liabilities works well here. All of the following are revenues, except for. Strong choice. Accounts receivable is the right answer. Stockholders are most interested in evaluating. On track. Profitability is the correct answer, which is an example of tangible fixed assets. Valid point. Land and building is true. Following is deducted while calculating COGS. Smart pick. Closing stock is the correct choice. Vertical analysis ratios are an example of a. Clear logic. Your choice profitability ratio is sound and 100% true. The debt ratio is a measure of a firm's dash. Nice selection. Leverage is the correct and valid answer. Given entry falls under non-operating income. Right choice. Dividend is the best answer. Which of the following is a liquidity ratio? Good thinking. Current ratio is the right answer. Annual report is issued by a company to its. Sharp thinking. Shareholders is the right choice. The primary goal of the financial manager is. Well done. Maximizing wealth is the right choice. Deferred tax assets are to be classified as. Bravo. Intangible assets is the answer. The price-earnings ratio is an example of a. Well-reasoned. Market ratio is the correct choice. Financial statements are prepared based on. Well picked. Historical cost is the correct answer. The acid test ratio is also known as dash. Exactly. Quick liquid ratio makes sense, and it is right choice. Generally, a corporation is owned by its. Correct. Shareholders is the right answer. Comparative statements show the changes in. You got it? Your choice both and is right. Marketable securities will appear under. Right again. Quick assets is a valid answer. How does net loss affect owner's equity? Perfect. Decreases is the correct choice. Following is an intangible fixed asset. Nice selection. Copyright is the correct and valid answer. The current ratio is also known as the. Well-reasoned. Working capital ratio is the correct choice. Given item falls under direct expenses. Valid point. Carriage inward is true. The following includes an audit opinion. Well picked. Unqualified opinion is the correct answer. Which are components of current assets? Great thinking. Account receivable is the right choice.
Which analysis is considered as dynamic?
Well done. Horizontal analysis is the right choice. The following is an example of a ratio. Nice work. You chose return on asset, and it is correct. Patents and trademarks are examples of. Nicely done. Intangible fixed assets is a solid answer. Working capital equal to current assets less. You're right. Current liabilities is the correct answer. Horizontal analysis is also known as. Solid response. Trend analysis is a valid choice. Following is not a non-quick assets. Smart pick. Debtors is the correct choice. Limitation of financial analysis is. Exactly. Window dressing makes sense, and it is right choice. Which is not a form of cap opinion. Good job. Your answer profitable works well here. All are profitability ratios except. Bravo! Days debtors is the answer. Form I of CMAF format is named as. Right choice. Operating statement is the best answer.
Stock at the beginning of the year?
Correct response. Opening inventory is the most accurate answer.
How do you calculate gross profit?
Excellent choice. Sales COGS is the right answer. The debt ratio is an example of a. Smart move. Solvency ratio is an accurate answer. An example of liquidity ratio is. Sharp thinking. Current ratio is the right choice. Gross margin can be increased by. You chose increasing unit sales prices. And it is correct.
What does COGS stand for?
Good thinking. Cost of goods sold is the right answer. Bills payable is shown as. Great job. Trade payables is the accurate answer. Financial statements are. Excellent. Recorded facts is a brilliant choice. Working capital formula. Strong choice. Current assets, current liabilities is the right answer. Liabilities means. Clear logic. Your choice liabilities must pay is sound and 100% true. Mining rights. On track. Intangible fixed assets is the correct answer. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format. Sharp thinking. Contact Narayan Changda is the right choice.